It's 900 hours Central Africa time on this Friday, 14th of October 2016. Jumbo Africa. This is Newsroom. A very warm welcome to the first hour. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Renee Vest. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. Stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios here in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. Now, a very warm welcome to all those watching us on our live YouTube stream as well. Now, our focus this morning is on Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who has made an impassioned plea for people to be allowed to die the way they choose, even if that means assisted death or euthanasia.
So what do you make of that? We'd like to find out from you. Should assisted death be allowed in South Africa? Some call it assisted suicide, assisted death. I would like to get your thoughts on it. Should you be allowed to make that choice? Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at our news headlines. Wits University says a group of students allegedly attempted to start several fires at the Braamfontein campus last night.
The Office of the Public Protector says it is still not clear if Advocate Thuli Madonsela will release the preliminary report into state capture.
And embassies in Thailand have advised tourists to respect the feelings of Thai people following the death of their king.
Let's get right into that news. Now, Public Protector Thuli Madonsela has declined to say whether she will release preliminary findings into allegations of the so-called state capture by the Gupta family. Now, Madonsela will be holding her last news conference today before stepping down after 7 years at the helm. And President Jacob Zuma and Cooperative Governance Minister Des van Rooyen have applied for a court interdict to prevent the release of the findings. Van Rooyen's case will be heard by the High Court in Pretoria today, while Zuma's application for an interdict will come before the same court on Tuesday. The president says he doesn't want the report to be released before he has been afforded an opportunity to look at all the evidence and interview witnesses.
I confirm that the presidency has served the public protector with notice of intention to apply for an interdict and that the matter will be heard next week Tuesday at the Pretoria High Court. The public protector at the moment has not decided on what she is going to do next. She is still consulting her lawyers.
Wits University says it is aware of a new voice note that is circulating in which students are being intimidated. The university says the threats are being investigated by security and police. Students have once again gone back on their word to attend special talks to end violent protests when they pulled out at last minute.
Equipped to act, but police did their best to keep tempers down. In the lecture rooms, academic activities continued. BSc Physics students Magwena Mpila and Malevo Sahange have different views on the current state of the VES protest.
I rely on a bursary, so it's like if I lose this year, then I'll have wasted a lot of a company's money, you know, and I don't know if I'm going to get it next year and what I'm going to do next year if I lose this year.
Unlike her classmate, 24-year-old Magwena Mpila is funded by NSFAS. Her background of being financially excluded is what drives her to support the ongoing protest.
Because last year I couldn't register because of the fees. I came back because the student fought for me, and I also want to fight for the future generations to come back.
University to shut down, to officially shut down. We want them to come with us to the national points of protest action that we are going to set up. We want them to be able to submit a class action against the government through the Constitutional Court.
I think we should all be grateful for peace. I think that the only way we're going to get out of this is through some sort of a negotiated settlement.
While the university is still trying to save the 2016 academic year, the question remains, when will the parties reach common ground? SABC News, Wits University in Johannesburg.
Protests, chaos and violent clashes also gripped several universities around the country yesterday, but relative calm returned to others as the academic program continued.
Anger boiling over at the Vaal University of Technology and discontent over, among other issues, the expulsion of 7 student leaders.
They paralyzed our SRC, Student Representative Council. As we speak, we are leaderless. This revolution is leaderless, that's why it resulted in this anarchy.
Students took their battle to the streets, venting their anger at police. While the university says it plans to continue with its academic program, and its last resort would be to shut down the university if the violence persists. But students are adamant that their protest action continues. More flames of fury at the UKZN Westville campus. This building set alight, and outside, more evidence of violence and clashes.
As I got outside, private security started hitting me. I think they were assuming that I was a part of the protest.
But the sporadic attacks were not in isolation. Security personnel also under threat at the Tshwane University of Technology. Again running battles and claims that live ammunition was used.
There is an investigation underway, and it's not clear whether it was live ammunition. Once we have more information, we will make it available.
Police also had their hands full at the Northwest University's Mahikeng campus. Several students, including the SRC president, were arrested. Despite the drama, some graduations went ahead. And a Cape Town University of Technology student, Byron Dick, faces charges of attempted murder. He is accused of torching a security control room. 2 security guards were allegedly locked inside the burning building. Griselda Lewis, SABC News.
The murder trial of Christopher Panayiotou continues in the Port Elizabeth High Court on Monday. The court has heard that the accused was indeed cheating on his late wife, who was brutally killed last year. A friend of Panayiotou's alleged mistress confirmed this in court yesterday.
Christopher Panayiotou's affair with Chanel Coates began while he was still engaged to Jade. The court heard that even on his wedding day, he had regrets about tying the knot with Jade because of his feelings to Chanel. Clarishka Kapp, the friend of Christopher Panayiotou's alleged mistress, revealed that he would buy Chanel expensive and lavish gifts. At times, he would invite her to even sleep over at his house. With these intimate cheating details, the state was trying to show how Christopher led a double life and how this could have been the motive for planning the murder of his wife. Meanwhile, another witness, pathologist Kevin Fourie, who did an autopsy on the murdered Jade, confirmed that she was shot in the head. She also had a bruise in the back of her neck, allegedly from being beaten by a gun. The autopsy report also showed that Jade was not sexually molested. The principal at Riebeek College, where Jade Panayiotou taught for 6 years, Marilyn Woods, also testified. She described the victim as a dedicated teacher who always smiled. Lerato Tipa, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
In news from further afield, 21 Nigerian schoolgirls released by their Boko Haram kidnappers met with the country's Vice President, Oluyemi Osinbajo. Their release came after the International Red Cross and the Swiss government brokered a deal with the group, and negotiations would continue to bring home the rest of the girls. The government denied reports that it had swapped Boko Haram's fighters for their release, and around 270 girls were taken from their school in Chibok in the remote northeastern Borno state, where Boko Haram was waged a 7-year insurgency to set up an Islamic State, killing thousands and displacing more than 2 million people.
There was no exchange of any kind. There was no exchange of any kind. Certainly, there was no swap of any kind. And I think that the truth of the matter, of course, as you know, even when we started negotiations, we had said that we were ready to consider whatever options there were. But I believe that very fortunately, God truly helped us in the negotiations. Absolutely no, there were absolutely no exchange of any kind, you know, and certainly any news or stories about 4 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 commanders is entirely untrue. No such thing took place.
Now coming back home, as the country and world continue to celebrate Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu's 85th birthday, the ailing clergy has thrown his weight behind assisted death or euthanasia. Now, in a video played at his birthday celebrations this weekend, Tutu made an impassioned plea for people to be allowed to die the way they choose, even if it means assisted death or assisted suicide.
The revered Arch, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, drumming up support for euthanasia and those campaigning for assisted suicide to relieve suffering.
One wants to say thank you.
The 85-year-old clergy has been in and out of hospital for cancer treatment and has added his voice to the ongoing debate on assisted death.
People who are terminally ill should have the option of dignified and compassionate assisted dying alongside the wonderful palliative care that already exists. I pray that politicians, lawmakers, and religious leaders have the courage to support the choices terminally ill citizens make in departing Mother Earth with dignity and love.
The Arch also reflected on his own mortality.
Death is a part of life. I hope that when the time comes, I am treated with compassion and allowed to pass on to the next phase of life's journey in the manner of my choice.
Helena Dolny is the wife of the late struggle icon Joe Slovo and a long-time advocate of euthanasia.
I think prolonging suffering is the most inhumane thing that you can wish on a person. And I know when my late husband was dying of cancer after 4 years, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at the way he's suffering, and I'm thinking, no, it's enough.
Dolny is currently writing a book on the issue. SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, this is what we're discussing here on Newsroom today. And we've been asking you a question and a poll, and that is, should assisted death or assisted suicide be allowed in South Africa? We want to know your views. And here's the poll. So far, it says we have 60% saying yes and 40% saying no. That is what the poll is sitting at right now. Now, you can also send your views to our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom or send us a message on our Facebook page. Now, to continue with the discussion on euthanasia, let's go over to Elvis.
Well, Renee, as you were speaking there, the poll just changed to 59 yes and 49 on the other hand. But we'll keep you updated on that poll as we continue today. 41 says, no, you can't have assisted death, and 59 thus far saying yes. Now, on October the 4th, 2014, activist group Dignity SA was created to lobby for legislation allowing terminal patients to access assisted death. Now, the campaign was spearheaded by the Ethics Institute of South Africa and Dignity SA. The launch of the controversial campaign to legalize doctor-assisted suicide came 2 weeks after the much publicized return to South Africa of the Dignity SA founder, Sean Davison, and following his 5-month house arrest in New Zealand, as you can recall, for assisting his aged mother to die. Davison was initially charged with attempted murder, but this was reduced to counseling and procuring attempted suicide. Now, to talk to us more about the legislation, or legalization rather, of assisted death, we are now joined in studio by Professor Willem Landman, who is the Executive Committee member of Dignity SA. Professor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you, Elvis.
First and foremost, talk to us about why do you think it's so important to legalize assisted death or assisted suicide, or even some call it euthanasia?
Elvis, I think we have a class of people, those identified by the inserts, people who suffer in a terminal state and suffer unbearably. Dying is a process, and for them it's not quick and it's not easy. And we believe that they have an entitlement, a right in terms of our Constitution, to be assisted in the dying process. Like other groups, they should have their rights recognized. I think of groups like same-sex marriages, termination of pregnancy, etc. And I think our Constitution, there's a clash between our Constitution, those entitlements that we have, and our common law, which still sees it as murder or culpable homicide. And in fact, that's what the North Gauteng court decided last year, that Strantham had such a right and he could do it legally, but we can't all do it. We still have to approach a court, and that's very cumbersome. So we want a more general recognition of that right.
Do you think that legalizing assisted death would be consistent with the Bill of Rights in our Constitution?
Absolutely. That is what the court found. That is what ultimately certainly in the next step, the Supreme Court of Appeal will have to decide, and whichever party loses will go to the Constitutional Court. But the North Gauteng court found that we have such a right. It's a right to dignity, and it's a right to bodily integrity, including the right to control over our body. And in terms of those rights, the argument is that those rights trump the right to life in those dire circumstances.
But how do you juxtapose the right to life and that of a person suffering or delayed suffering?
The main thing to remember is that no right in the Constitution, even the most fundamental right to life, no right is absolute. There are exceptions to every right, and we know that the right to life, we can trump that. There's an exception to that in terms of self-defense and killing in a time of war. And the question here is, would assisted dying be a justified exception to the right to life in the Constitution? We believe so. We believe we are not obliged to live when we are suffering in those dire circumstances.
Now, the Health Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, he indicated that a law that enabled euthanasia, assisted death, or even assisted suicide would be open to abuse and manipulation and leave patients vulnerable to be mistakenly diagnosed. What do you say to that particular argument, and is it a valid argument that he does have?
I think it's an argument that needs to be taken seriously. It is an argument that needs to be taken seriously in every practice that we have in life. If we drive cars on the road, that right and that privilege that we have is open to abuse. So we need to control these matters. The same applies to assisted dying. Yes. Our experience in other jurisdictions where it is handled with great circumspection is that the abuse argument is completely overplayed. And in fact, the Canadian Constitutional Court found last year that given the 20-year period that we have learned from the Oregon experience, that the abuse argument is really not a valid one. And we believe that it can be properly controlled as we control withholding and withdrawal of treatment, which is already legal. We control in our medical practice, in hospitals, dying people's time and manner of death. We make those same choices. So this choice is no different, and the abuse would be no different. But we need to be very responsible about how we handle that.
So the doctor is supposed to then assist the patient to die, but the doctor has got an Hippocratic oath that he's got to abide with. So how do you deal with that?
First of all, it depends on what legislation we'll get, because eventually this will have to go to Parliament. And it need not only be the doctor. Certainly there will be a conscience clause for doctors to opt out. But you know, the Hippocratic Oath is 2,500 years old. We find in medical schools that final year students write the code that is appropriate to today. And I think if we talk about what is relevant in terms of our moral duties as doctors, we must look at the context, the dying context. None of us will live forever. We will all die. Yes. And we hope we don't die in a protracted and painful way. And I think a caring doctor would accompany us in those last moments.
But talking about doctors, at the moment, South Africa has got a scarcity of doctors. We have a problem with that. And we also have student protests where that means that new doctors that were supposed to come into the system will not be there to absorb that. Would it not be premature to legalize then euthanasia or assisted death?
We have yes, we have a public healthcare system that's under pressure, but we can't deny that people die. And it's the only issue is in the here at issue is how will they die and what manner would they die. Whether we accompany them by withholding or withdrawing of treatment and waiting till they die in the hospital bed, or whether we assist them. I don't think the issue of resources is a major one.
But palliative care is also another issue. Isn't that perhaps the answer, rather than assisted suicide?
I think the Archbishop is completely correct to say that this is something next to, in addition to, palliative care. I think that's the non-negotiable point of departure. We need to alleviate pain. We need to help people who die in an excruciating way. But this is not an alternative to that. It is. We start with palliative care, and some would need further assistance.
Professor, we got a lot more to discuss, but unfortunately we're out of time for now. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Always. I appreciate it.
That was Professor Willem Landman. He's the Executive Committee member of Dignity SA. Now let's take a look at what you have to say of these issues on the matter. Let's take a look. This one from Makuya says, nothing will change until you give us what you promise us. Now that wasn't the question that we posed yesterday in terms of the Fees Must Fall movement. Will it change anything? There's a committee that was appointed by the president to look into the Fees Must Fall issue, and these are some of the comments that you've put forward. This one from TVG says, well, we live in a kleptocratic state, and poll leaders, or political leaders rather, would rather waste money on luxury cars and private jets instead of education. Does he have a point? That's another question there. TVG. Stera says, it is to bring calm to the current situation in universities and facilitate a peaceful negotiation among the stakeholders, says Stera. That is what this new committee is all about. Leslie says, give them free, quality and decolonized education, and then you will see they will stop protesting. Hashtag Fees Must Fall. Those are some of your comments from the question that we posed to you yesterday. Will this new committee make a difference? Now, our picture of the day comes from Narayan Anchara and is captioned, 21 of the schoolgirls kidnapped in Nigeria by Boko Haram in 2014 breathe fresh air again. Hope all the others will be freed soon. Now, those are some of the girls that's been released there in Nigeria. We'll keep you abreast of that story as it continues, some of the girls released. Our comment of the day comes from Gwara Gopala Dasa, who says, a great man is never recognized in his own time, but in time he will be, as this proves. Bob is a great inspiration. Well, which Bob? Bob Marley? Bob Mugabe? Well, you make up your mind about that. We'll let you know who it is. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the courts. We start in the Western Cape. In Cape Town, the alleged University of Cape Town serial rapist is expected to make his first appearance in the Western Cape High Court. 35-year-old Patrick Clomani faces charges of rape, attempted murder, robbery with aggravating circumstances and kidnapping. He allegedly attacked 3 women near Rhodes Memorial since November last year. Those are some of the stories currently happening, and we'll also keep you updated on those as they develop. So stay tuned here on your favorite channel. This is Channel 404. This is Newsroom.
The proceedings of the Fees Commission has once again been disrupted.
We as a university do not feel that fee-free higher education currently is feasible.
This is a Mickey Mouse commission. During in the commission, student grievances we're not a part of the commission in the program. So that is why we tend to disturb the program.
If you tell me that I can't leave, then you are keeping me hostage.
Some students demanded that UCT lift the suspensions and expulsions of certain students.
Welcome back. Now, Dignity SA says that Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu's comments on assisted dying makes an important contribution to the fight for dignified death. Now, the NGO is proposing a change to South Africa's laws that will enable mentally competent adults to exercise this option. The South African Medical Association, on the other hand, says it isn't ethical for doctors to help patients die. Professor Daniel Kanyana, who is the president of the South African Medical Association, joins us now from our Cape Town studios. Professor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, you heard what Dignity SA had to say, but from your perspective as the South African Medical Association, what does the Hippocratic Oath of the doctor say?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting the Medical Association to speak on this subject. And I have to say as well that Tutu is a man of huge integrity, and one needs to listen when he speaks. Having said that, the Medical Association's position, excuse me, on euthanasia is that it is unethical. That isn't just the position of the South African Medical Association. Mm-hmm. It is the position of the World Medical Association. Mm-hmm. And let's also not forget that in the entire world, only 8 countries have a law that allows euthanasia in one form or another. Out of, I don't know how many countries are in the world, 204. So we believe that the Hippocratic Oath binds us to save lives, not to take them.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you, and I'm sure you would disagree, but this proposal of a change to South Africa's laws that will enable mentally competent adults to exercise this option, is that not perhaps a starting point where you take this particular decision, mentally competent to do so?
Well, I have an opinion on that, and this is not necessarily an opinion of the association. Mm-hmm. My view is that South Africa is not at the stage where it is in a position to make such legislation. Mm-hmm. South Africa is a highly unequal society. You know, for somebody to be eligible for euthanasia, that person must have received the very best care, medical care in the world, and also had access to the best palliative and hospice care, you know, in the terminal situation. And South Africa offers none of these, and I'm just afraid that if you pass a law that allows people to be killed, basically, by the doctor, that euthanasia will become a substitute for failures in the health system that we have, which is totally inadequate at the moment.
Now, we're running also a poll today, Professor, on the issue of euthanasia and assisted death. And so far, it looks like a lot of people are very positive towards making that decision on their own when you are very sick, that you can take that particular decision. But do you feel, though, that it's unfair to put this type of pressure on doctors, because doctors need to assist the patient then to die?
I do think that it is an unfair burden on the medical profession, and I almost feel like you will need a new profession that specializes in this, in taking away life when it is appropriate to do so, the same way people do with the death penalty, for instance. Fortunately, all the laws that I'm aware of do leave the decision to perform euthanasia to the doctor's conscience. And to that extent, the doctors are protected.
So you are saying perhaps a new profession. So would that be doctors of death?
Whether they would even be medical doctors is a question in my mind. You know, it could be paramedics who are trained for that specific purpose. But not naturally the certification that the patient has reached the end of their lease would have to come from the medical profession.
Now, I
have to say...
Yes. No, continue, Doctor.
Go ahead. No, I have to say that, you know, we are of the view that a patient who is terminal, but who receives adequate, you know, palliative care and hospice care is actually quite comfortable and dies in dignity. It is fallacious to say that a patient who is terminal need die in indignity just because they are terminal, unless somebody intervenes.
Now, from the South African Medical Association's perspective, Professor, how should we then deal with the requests from those who want to die with dignity rather than suffer until they die?
Well, I think that we should offer them the medical care that is available to patients who are terminal, that will make them not feel like their dignity is being undermined. We should make them sufficiently comfortable that they can simply await time for them to pass away naturally.
And from your perspective, there shouldn't be any compromise?
Not in South Africa. You know, a patient can always travel to Oregon or to Switzerland and have that done. By the way, I also have to say that, having said at the beginning to say that we're an unequal society, we are only talking about a small proportion of privileged South Africans who would benefit from this law. If you think of a rural person who is poor and is going to a rural hospital with poor facilities, it is very unlikely that such a person would eventually benefit from this law.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us there in our Cape Town studios and giving us your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Now that was the president of the South African Medical Association, Professor Daniel Nkiyana, giving us his take on assisted death or suicide. Now, over to Renee, because we continue with that question that we posed to you. Renee?
That's quite right, Alvis. It's quite an interesting discussion we're having here on youth.
Very interesting discussion and varied views, isn't
it?
Yeah.
So we are asking our audiences today, should assisted death be allowed in South Africa? Let's take a look at some of your comments. Here we see the poll currently sitting at, it looks like 58% saying yes and 42% saying no. So most of you that are voting are in favor of euthanasia, it seems. Well, keep on sending some of those comments to our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But let's take a look at what's happening on... Oh, we have some comments first before we continue with the newspapers. Let's see what you have to say. Tabani says, people will kill their relatives before their appointed time. Person may change his mind at the edge of death. Well, yes, that is quite right. Now we have N. Artis says, a friend said yes. Let's the person die with dignity. Save the family money, but also it pays God, which is the downside of it. Plays God, it plays God. Going against the natural order is what he says. Then Lungisani says, at SABC Newsroom, with a big no I don't think the assisted death should be legalized. Zinclair says, assisted death, oh, I say no, should not be allowed. One has a right to life. There's no justification. Well, continue sending in some of your comments. We want to know what you think about this topic. Now let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission on Thursday refuted claims by the Higher and Tertiary Education Minister, Jonathan Moyo, that the money that the minister is accused of having embezzled was used to fund ruling ZANU-PF activities. Then a study conducted by the University of Stellenbosch's Department of Microbiology has concluded that banknotes are the most germ-ridden surfaces, followed by coins. Your money is very dirty, it seems. And finally, Higher Education Minister Bladen Nzimande has told the Fees Commission in Pretoria that no country in the world can afford free education. Nzimande says even in countries that are always cited as offering free education, taxpayers are burdened with the duty of paying. Now you can find these stories and more on our Facebook page and SABC's news website. Well, let's go back to Elvis to continue the discussion on euthanasia or assisted death.
Yes, Renee, thank you so much. Now, last year, the state was granted leave to appeal a Pretoria High Court decision on assisted suicide. Judge Hans Fabricius ruled in favor of a terminally ill cancer patient, Robin Strunsom Ford, who wanted to end his life. Respondents, the Justice and Health Departments, together with the National Prosecuting Authority, opposed the application. Now, in South Africa, assisted suicide debate began about 18 years ago. President Nelson Mandela engaged the South African Law Commission to carry out a project addressing end-of-life decisions. Now, the result was the proposed End-of-Life Decisions Act, a bill that was tabled in Parliament in the year 2000, but it did not get any further than that. The Deputy Director General of the Department of Health, Dr. Terence Carter, now joins us in the studio to tell us why the department is determined to stop the decriminalization of assisted death. Doctor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning.
Why do you want to stop assisted suicide and assisted death in its tracks?
One needs to understand exactly what is being asked for when one speaks of physician-assisted death.
Mm-hmm.
One is actually asking doctors to kill patients. And if you then look at the motivation as to why such a suggestion is being made, is in recognition of some of the things that are mentioned by Bishop Tutu and others who advocate for physician-assisted death, and that is to ensure that people die with dignity.
Yes.
And to ensure that people die without suffering. Now, palliative care is, in fact, precisely intended to achieve that purpose. To ensure that people die with dignity, with compassion, and for suffering to have been relieved during the time when people face the end of their life.
But some would argue that palliative care just prolong the ill patient or the terminally ill patient and give him much more suffering and pain. What do you say to that?
One needs to understand the philosophy of palliative care. So if one were to quote Dame Cecily Saunders, who is an advocate for palliative care, she says the following: palliative care philosophy means that you matter, and you matter as you, and you matter to the end of your life. And we will ensure that we can help you to when the time arises for you to face the end of your life, that you can die peacefully, that you can die with dignity. And when you reach the end of your life, that you will continue to live until you reach the end of your life. So palliative care is not only about relieving suffering and to be compassionate, but it's also about ensuring that you live until you reach the end.
Now, over the weekend, Archbishop Desmond Tutu was quoted saying, and I quote, "Dying people should have the right to choose how and when they leave Mother Earth." Now, isn't that exactly what you were just saying? And that should be the individual's take on it?
Absolutely. And if you listen carefully to what Archbishop Tutu says, and we respect the views and the positions of Archbishop Tutu as one of our leaders in the country, Archbishop Tutu quotes an archbishop in the UK, Archbishop Carey. And if you then go and look at what Archbishop Carey said in terms of physician-assisted suicide, it's based on the premise that in some circles, suffering is assumed to be noble, and therefore to allow people to suffer is noble. So obviously when you look at that, the alternative of rather terminating suffering is a preference, and one can understand why an archbishop would make such a choice. Palliative care, on the other hand, does not say that suffering is noble. Palliative care is in fact intended to relieve suffering to the best way possible and to ensure that all aspects of suffering are dealt with so that the person dies with dignity, peacefully, and with compassion, as the Archbishop suggested.
As the Department of Health, what are some of your concerns? Is it perhaps that the law would be abused by certain doctors or even quacks for that matter?
Absolutely. That's one of the considerations. It's not the key consideration, because our position is that palliative care is the way that one ensures death with dignity. But as you say, if such a law were to be introduced, and one can only go back in history to see how such laws were abused, and the best example is in Germany, where the first assisted suicide, euthanasia, or killing of a patient was a disabled child in Germany in 1936, when an instruction was given to kill a disabled child. Now, if you are in a country or in an environment where you have resource constraints, or where you have a lack of understanding, of a lack of compassion, or a lack of consideration for life, it's quite easy to use the law to terminate somebody's life, in fact to kill people. So that is one consideration. But our position is fundamentally, as a doctor, your job is to relieve suffering and to ensure that people are treated with compassion and to do the best you can for your patient. And the Hippocratic Oath was introduced at a time when assisted suicide was in fact accepted, euthanasia was accepted. So when Hippocrates introduced the concept of dignity and to eliminate the issue of euthanasia for doctors, it was in an environment where euthanasia was accepted, when he introduced the concept that as a medical doctor, your duty first is a duty to care.
The South African Medical Association said there might be the opportunity for another profession, which is assisted death, doctors of death. Is that perhaps a possibility for you, you think?
Unlikely, because as much as, and I listened to the input from the president of SAMA, indicating in fact that such a profession would fall under the Health Professions Council of South Africa. The position of the Health Professions Council of South Africa is the same as the position of the World Medical Association. It is the same as the World Health Assembly. It is the same as UNESCO, and that is that a doctor should never be allowed to kill his patients.
Professor, Doctor, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
Thank you.
Now that was the Deputy Director General of the Department of Health, Dr. Terence Carter. Now you heard his views. What are your views on the very same issue that we're posing to you? Do you think that people should be assisted to die in this country? Let us know on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. You can also participate in the poll. And earlier on, the poll was standing at 59-41. I would like to find out what it is right now. But let's now go to back to the big story of the day. The economic freedom fighters and the United Democratic Movement have approached the North Gauteng High Court to force the public protector to release a report on state capture. Our reporter Eldrin Sampia now joins us from Pretoria. Eldrin, can you give us what is the latest there from Pretoria?
Well, as you've Elvis just indicated, now we know that the EFF as well as the UDM is joining this application, is joining this case to force Public Protector Thuli Madonsela to release the report, and they are actually challenging Des van Rooyen. This is the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. He's made an application to have Thuli Madonsela hold the release of the much anticipated state capture report. But Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, is also amongst those sitting in the gallery at this moment. So we're still waiting for the proceedings to kick off. That's expected to start around about 10 o'clock. And just looking at some of the allegations that the EFF is making in the application, they are arguing that the second respondent, which is the president in this case, has violated the constitution, and this was stipulated back in the Nkandla matter. They quote the Mogoeng's judgment, the Constitutional Court judgment on the Nkandla matter, where it enforced the powers of the Public Protector. They also argue that the applicant, this is Des van Rooyen, as well as the second respondent, President Jacob Zuma, won't suffer any irreparable harm should that report be released today. They still have other avenues, which is taking this report for judicial review. We also know, of course, that is something that has been emphasized by the Constitutional Court, that listen, if you're not happy with the report of the Public Protector, you're more than welcome to take it under judicial review.
I just want to go back to the point with President Jacob Zuma calling for the report not to be released until he has had time to go over it himself. Now, some say that he had time since the beginning of this year. Is this correct? And does this not mean then that we give the public a sense that he does not, that he does rather have something to hide?
This is also the argument of the EFF in its paper, saying that, listen, the questions were sent to the president in March already, and in an interview with Thuli Madonsela, she indicated that the president said that he had not received the questions in March, and then again she sent the questions in April, and she said that the president was under the impression actually that the person being investigated was his son. Remember that some of the allegations that have been made is that when the Gupta family made a job offer, I think it was to SABC Jonas, the Deputy Finance Minister, the President's son, Tutuzani Zuma, was amongst those sitting in that room. And now the President then said that he thought that investigation was against his son and not against him. Now there is clarity that actually the investigation is against the President as well as the Gupta family. The President indicated in that letter on Monday as well, when he was supposed to have met Thuli Madonsela, saying that, listen, I need you to give me all the evidence that has been given to you, as well as a list of questions that have, and as well as a list of the list of witnesses rather that you have interviewed. And Thuli Madonsela indicated on the saying that on the 1st of October, actually all that was handed over to the President. This is the evidence, and the President, of course, made that threat that, listen, you must respond or hand over hand over all these submissions that I'm asking for by the end of Tuesday. And now this is where we find ourselves, the President challenging Thuli Madonsela's release of this report. Some arguments within the legal fraternity is that considering that President Jacob Zuma's case will only be heard on Tuesday, that allows Thuli Madonsela to release the report today. We know that for today she has a press briefing which will be starting at 2 o'clock. She is expected to be releasing some of the reports that she has been busy with, but what many have been asking is whether the state capture report will be amongst those 20 reports that you will be releasing today.
Now, if the report is not released today, will the new Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, continue this report? Because she indicated in her opening remarks that, she's going to focus on other issues which is more important, which is the backlog within the Public Protector's office.
Looking at the public pressure as well as the public interest in the state capture investigation, and this is a question that I posed to her when she indicated that, listen, state capture is not as important, and she will be focusing on grassroots levels issues. And she indicated, she also made an example, and this is an accounting principle, where she said first in, first out. That's the approach that she will be taking when she assumes office from tomorrow. When I spoke to Thuli Madonsela about this, Thuli Madonsela speaking on the urgency, why is she pressing so hard to have this report released before the end of her term? And she indicated that actually, according to the Executive Code of Ethics, ethics. It indicates that, listen, when it comes to complaints against the executive, members of the executive, that complaint needs to be investigated within 30 days. And many, many weeks have lapsed, and that's, as she indicated at the time, and that was because the money from Treasury came too late, and the team that was investigating or is investigating the state capture allegations is a small team. So what happens today is that if she does not release the report, it falls squarely on the shoulders of the new public protector coming in, that is Busisiwe Mkhwebane, to continue with this investigation. On Tuesday, when President Jacob Zuma's case is being heard, we know for sure that Thuli Madonsela will not be there, but it will be Busisiwe Mkhwebane, because then she will be the public protector. When I spoke to Thuli Madonsela about this investigation not being complete, she said, unfortunately, unlike judges in court cases where a retired judge can come back to finish up a case which is not finished, unfortunately with the public protector's office, when the public protector's term comes to an end, that's that. She can't come back to come and complete investigation. So Busisiwe Mkhwebane will have to complete this investigation into state capture.
Eldrin, you'll keep us updated on the court case today. Thank you so much for that report. That's our reporter on the scene there, Eldrin Sampear, live. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss it. But remember, we are asking you today, should assisted death be allowed in South Africa? Let's take a look at what you have to say. This one coming from Elzan. We can't judge to say people shouldn't play God, because we do not feel their pain laying on their deathbed. So I say, yes, you can. That one from Elzan. Assisting someone to die is not dignity. What about the dignity and ethics of the doctor? Does Dignity SA support life sentence? So says Mr. Cool, eh? Calvin says, no, let God decide time and date. This one from Mandla Amigo says, it is murder, and I wonder if those who says yes were going to allow it if it was the case with Mandela. Question there from Mandla Amigo. Zinclair says, assisted death, I say no. This rule will be abused and many will make money out of this, as it is already. Patients are being killed, says Zinclair. Well, you've heard some says that some will even murder their family members because to save money. Well, these are some of the comments coming through. You can also view or tell us what's your view on this, and let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well. It's on the Facebook page. If you like us there, that's on the Facebook page. You, yes, you, become part and parcel of the informed. But right now, by the way, there's also a poll that you can participate in. We'd like to find out the very same question to you. Do you think that people should be assisted to die? Let us know what's on your mind. Right now, let's take a look at your weather forecast.
The Divas of Kofifi were honored with a musical production, taking you through the highlights of the lives of these remarkable women.
I just play this little role where I show the life and times of Mam Dorothy Masuku from when she moved from Bulawayo to South Africa.
I'm playing Thandi Mbambane Klassen. She speaks her mind. She doesn't take no for an answer.
I will be playing Mom Abigail Kubeka, who is one of the most prolific female icons in South Africa. She was a triple threat, which means she was a singer, dancer, actress.
For your weekly dose of arts and entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
We remain shut up until our demands are met.
We will continue to fight for free decolonized education.
Absolutely volatile at this stage. Police standing on the one end and the students standing on the other. Can we get some help? Can we get some help?
We want to know why they are shooting at us when we remained peaceful.
We didn't provoke anyone.
All of them have children and families who can't get into university because fees are expensive.
There is no reason to create our universities into police states. There's just no reason, and we cannot.
It's the second hour here on Newsroom, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Renee Vest. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. Of course, we're broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios here in Johannesburg. Now, our focus today has been on the euthanasia. Now, this follows the weekend where Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he made an impassioned plea to allow people to die with dignity. Now, we've been asking you a question.
It's on the poll as well as on the question, should assisted death be allowed in South Africa? Hashtag SABC News, hashtag assisted death. And there you have it, Renee.
Yes, 52% of people who have voted today say yes, and 48% are saying no.
Now you can see the numbers are shrinking. It's getting very, very close. Now you can put in your vote in there. 142 votes thus far. There's 22 hours left. You can let us know. We'd like to look at that number tomorrow and see who is saying yes and who is saying no in South Africa. Currently, it looks very, very close, almost like a 50-50. It's going to get there. 48% says no, and as you can see, the numbers they're indicating that yes is much higher at 52. Let's take a look at some of the tweets that's coming in.
And Mr. Cool says palliative and hospice care is much preferred than to kill someone.
I vote no, says Mr. Cool. Very cool, Mr. No. This one from RT Artis says the director is right. Such matters do not involve emotions in them. The right to life makes sense today. The oath need not to be violated, says N. Artis.
And Sipo says only God can take our life. So assisted death, it won't be fair to doctors, because they will be forced to commit a sin.
Well, it's much more than a sin. You're breaking your Hippocratic oath. Alzan says we can't judge to say that people shouldn't play God. Of course, we do not feel their pain laying on their deathbed. So I say yes. Now there you have to juxtapose between death and pain.
And Devu Johnson says, if I am terminally ill on my deathbed and I decide I want to die, then my wishes should be respected. After all, it is my life.
Well then, Defoe, you should have yourself a living will, because if you do have a living will and you cannot communicate with the outside world or in your family, then your living will shall tell you what to do, or the people what to do with you. Now, there's the poll now. 52% says yes, 48% says no. Participate in the poll and also send us your comments on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's now take a look at your news headlines. Wits University says a group of students allegedly attempted to start several fires at the Braamfontein campus last night.
The Office of the Public Protector says it is still not clear if Advocate Thuli Madonsela will release the preliminary report into state capture.
Kapan. Embassies in Thailand have advised tourists to respect the feelings of the Thai people following the death of their king.
Into the news for this hour, Public Protector Thuli Madonsela has declined to say whether she will release preliminary findings into allegations of the so-called state capture by the Gupta family. Madonsela will be holding her last news conference today at around 2 o'clock before stepping down after 7 years at the helm. Now, President Jacob Zuma and Cooperative Governance Minister Des van Rooyen have applied for a court interdict to prevent the release of the findings. Van Rooyen's case will be heard by the High Court in Pretoria shortly, while Zuma's application for an interdict will come before the same court on Tuesday. The president says he doesn't want the report to be released before he has been afforded an opportunity to look at all the evidence and interview witnesses.
I confirm that the presidency has served the public protector with notice of intention to apply for an interdict, and that the matter will be heard next week Tuesday at the Pretoria High Court. The public protector at the moment has not decided on what she is going to do next. She is still consulting her lawyers.
Our political reporter Aldrin Sampier did an interview there, but we will get back to that shortly. Now, moving on to news. As the Public Protector prepares to leave office today, the South African Arts and Culture Youth Forum marched to her office yesterday. The forum marched in support of SABC's Chief Executive for Corporate Affairs, Claudie Motswaneng, and the public broadcaster's remaining board members. They also accused outgoing Public Protector Thuli Madonsela of being biased, allegations that she has denied. Well, moving on to other news.
The South African Arts and Culture Youth Forum and Friends of Claudie Motswaneng movements in support of and praising former SABC COO Claudie Motswaneng. They also wished for the downfall of Motswaneng's detractors. Among them, outgoing Public Protector Thuli Madonsela.
We are telling you now that we know that you are agents of white people and you are agents of capitalism. You can tell your friends in those fancy champagne dinners that we are not scared of them. We are young people, we are poor, we don't have anything, but we have voices.
Motswaneng urged his supporters to treat the Public Protector's office with the utmost respect.
We may be angry about Thuli, but we should not insult her and other leaders. I have my own issues about Thuli Madonsela, but I respect that office of the Public Protector, and I know that I was not wrong.
The CEO of the Public Protector's office received the memorandum on behalf of Advocate Madonsela.
Got to bow to our constitution, because it's this constitutional democracy which enables all voices to be expressed as freely as they want to be. So this is symbol of exactly what our constitutional democracy delivers.
The South African Arts and Culture Youth Forum has threatened that should Thuli Madonsela's office continue with an anti-Claudie Motswaneng sentiment, then they will continue to march to her offices and voice their discontent. Offense Estimo, SABC News, Pretoria.
Now, as the public protector winds up her term of office, a lot has happened, including political parties expressing their views about her work and the current political issues, such as the finance minister being summoned. In the studio, we are joined by Zizi Kodwa, the ANC spokesperson. Mr. Kodwa, very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you.
First and foremostly, today is the last day of the public protector. Just give us your take as the ANC. What do you make of her term and how do you feel about her leaving the office?
I think she's been like a rose that grew from the concrete. She's been a source of inspiration, a source of hope, particularly for the poor, those who cannot access justice, who cannot access our courts. As we speak, I got a call from Mpumalanga, someone who's in her office as we speak, who has been going up and down, sent from pillar to post by officials of government. She got hope and helped by her office. So she brought and restored dignity, but also a hope to many South Africans that they must have a confidence in public institutions, in state institutions. And I think she will be missed. But we have no doubt that we must thank both the National Assembly, we must thank the President, those who had the foresight to appoint her. There were many cynics and critics when she was appointed that she comes from obscurity. She did not have a political face that is popular. But I think she has proved that she brought hope even to many people that our institutions that support our democracy are strong. Even if you may have problems with certain individuals in terms of what happens recently, but institutions that support our democracy are very strong. And I think we will miss her. If I were to be a president, I will make her a minister tomorrow.
Now, the Secretary General, Gwede Mantashe, said that the public protector saved us from ourselves. What do you make with that particular statement?
You must recall that sometimes when you look inwardly as a party, you may not see your own weaknesses. But if you look at someone from outside, like her, the way she has, as a governing party, not just as the ANC, the governing party, to say, these are the things that some of your cadres deployed in different spheres of government. That's what they are doing. And we're able to correct ourselves. For an example, on the issue of Nkandla, our interpretation about her powers, it had to go to a concord for us to appreciate the powers of the public protector. So that is the kind of a person who did her work without prejudice, without fear and without favor. It's in fact in the same way we want to welcome the incoming, that she must as well be like a rose that grew from the concrete. She must do her work like without any prejudice, without fear. She must be fearless. We're not asking any favors from the incoming public protector, because in the same way we learned, in the same way that the outgoing save us from ourselves, she must continue to do so to save us from ourselves. Because we're such a big organization, we have many individuals who are deployed elsewhere by the organization who do things without the mandate of the ANC. And when they do those things, people say it is the ANC. And when the public protector acts like she did, like I said this morning, that there's a case of a very poor man from Mpumalanga. These are the kind of cases that never gets headlines. But these are kind of cases that make her office more relevant.
Let's just reflect quickly. A few days ago, our political reporter, Aldrin Sampear, asked the public protector about her investigation into allegations of state capture, and this is what she had to say.
We can't say if we have a prima facie case, because that would really compromise the investigation. All we can say is that we've investigated the matter and we've interviewed people, but I can confirm that the starting point had to be the accusers. That's how this system starts. So Mr. Jonas had to be the first. Ms. Mentor and Mr. Masebo had to be right there at the beginning, because they're the ones who said this thing happened to us. Then we had to look at then any other people that could either corroborate their story or disprove their story. And then also, lastly, then look at the people who are accused and look at what is their version of what really happened.
Now, a lot of cases that attracted media attention are the cases linked to government or high ANC profile leaders. Mr. Kodwa, how has this affected the African National Congress as a party?
It would be expected that those who are in business of selling news, you won't take a case that I'm talking about, of a poor guy from Mpumalanga. It wouldn't make any headlines. Commercially, it wouldn't increase sales in terms of circulation. So there will be cases naturally because of people's location in society. For example, if you are a minister, if you are a president, such case where it involves the oath of office, maladministration, corruption, naturally, not because they will be isolated. But I think the good thing about outgoing public protector is that she always acted within the law and the constitution and defended the act of her office. And I think the incoming will also fill the big shoes, that she must act without fear, without prejudice, without favor, but also she must defend the act, a public protector act, but also she must act within the law and the constitution. And it's very important, so that you must act like a court. You don't consider public statements which are made outside. You act on the basis, law courts, for example, they operate on the basis of a principle of all the adderam partem, that you listen both sides and objectively of the material evidence presented before you take a decision. And I think she will always be remembered, we'll always remember her for having stood her ground, even on such high-profile cases.
Yes.
I mean, we're not talking about Prasa, we're not talking about many other cases. She stood her ground, but using the law.
She's standing her ground up until her last day. She's supposed to leave the office today, but she's also supposed to release a report on state capture. It's in court today. Your thoughts on that, and why is there perhaps a push from the presidency to stop this report from coming out?
You'll recall it's us, the ANC, who came up with a debate in the country about corporate state capture. It was early in January, after our Lekgotla, responding to a number of allegations that there were corporates, big corporates, were influencing whether it's adjudication of tenders or influencing some of our cadres who are in senior positions to favor them in terms of the working government. And then we also, having said that in January, we created an avenue because we couldn't respond to public statements that were made and allegations. We created an avenue where we could get evidence and act in that evidence. But unfortunately, not all our cadres, all those who implicated public officials, used that opportunity. Two reasons. Not because they did not trust the process. Firstly was that they wanted what is called protection. Two was the issue of confidentiality. And some of them suggested that perhaps we must use what is called law enforcement agencies and state agencies. That's why many of them, they would have gone to the public protector. And as the ANC, we're looking forward to that report because we're looking for evidence of that report. Because any allegation of corporate state capture of a democratic government, of a democratic state, is a threat to the very nature and the character of a democratic state, but also to the character of our revolutionary movement. The ANC itself is a threat, that some of your cadres are captured. So we're looking for evidence, not something anecdotal. We hope that that report will point us to the African National Congress, but it's something that we've got to make sure that the African National Congress we guard against. When people elect us, they actually bestow their confidence on us. Hence, we deploy our cadres in some positions. If now it is discovered through material evidence that our cadres have been captured by this and that wealthy family, then is an issue that the ANC can just close and dig its head in the sand.
Mr. Kodwa, you touched on the public protector looking at cases that nobody would even take or notice of, and there is a case today that you've mentioned. But now, one of the cases, or that is going to continue, is the state capture process, and the new protector is stepping in. Now, what is your message as the ANC to the new public protector coming in terms of these particular cases that's sitting on a desk and moving forward?
The same as we said when the outgoing public protector was appointed. Like I say, her critics was that, she's from obscurity, she's a Zumaleki at the time.
Yes.
She's the President Zumaleki, she will listen to Luthuli House. Now history is a judge. And I think the incoming must not feel under pressure because there's a possibility that she may act irrational and unlawful to please certain section. I like the advice of the outgoing to the incoming that always bring your team, act within the law and the act and the constitution. You won't make any mistake. And I think there will be a lot of pressure given some of the political noise already, that she must take only high-profile cases. I like the example of the case I just mentioned from Mpumalanga. These are the kinds of people who don't get any attention because they don't have any high profile. These are the kind of cases sometimes I would like the incoming to focus, to make sure that she continues to restore the dignity of the Office of the Public Protector.
Now, turning to NPA matters. The Finance Minister has been summoned by the NPA. The ANC was very clear that the Minister is innocent until proven guilty. Has the ANC discussed this internally?
We said, given the seriousness of the allegations made against the minister, the ANC will be meeting urgently. We haven't had a formal meeting. As you are aware, we indicated early this week that a number of our leaders are not in the country. And perhaps there are issues that are now between the NPA and the minister as an accused person. The allegations are quite serious. And I think the ANC would have to meet urgently, because some of those issues, among others, without stopping the process and interfere with the law, we'll have to discuss the impact. And the impact is what the ANC will regard as the management of that issue, because a finance minister will not be any Zizi Kodwa, whom if you arrest today will not make a fluctuation in the rand and so on an impact. But it's important to say, what then do we do as the ANC without interfering, firstly, or being inconsistent, firstly with the resolution of the ANC in dealing with these matters that people are facing with serious allegation, but also with the law. Our appreciation is that the matter is before the courts now. We shouldn't continue to make public statements which also feeds into speculations about why and why not and what led to. Because our courts, again, will be able to sift facts from truth and truth from fact.
November the 2nd is a big day. That is when the minister will appear in court. And there has been calls by some people that there will be a march to support the minister. Will the African National Congress be joining that march?
You would be aware that Comrade Gordon enjoys the full support of the African National Congress, because summons is not a conviction. He enjoys full support of the leadership of the African National Congress. That's why even the president made the statement that Comrade Gordon, the mere fact that he has been served with summons does not make him a convicted criminal. A number of us in the ANC, through different portfolios, would have said, look, we'll support the minister, we'll be with the minister when he appears in court, until the court makes otherwise. Because in terms of our jurisprudence, he's innocent until found otherwise by the court of law, not a public trial.
Now, there are perceptions that the minister's actions is of a person who feels that he's above the law. Is that the position of the African National Congress?
We've always made a point that we should not institutionalize individuals. Because at a point where individuals, they've got issues with the law, we always create a perception that the world has come to a collapse, or the institutions themselves exist because of those individuals. We've seen elsewhere the problem about institutionalizing individuals. We've always also said individuals themselves in those institutions must not elevate themselves and isolate themselves and making themselves targets of whatever issues. We don't think the minister thinks that he's a victim, except that there could be issues that the minister feels has been unfairly treated, but we've got our courts. Our courts will prove and disprove some of the issues that have been ventilated in public.
Mr. Kodwa, there's 100 million questions that I need to ask, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But thank you so much for making time at such short notice to come into our studio. Thank you so much.
Anytime, man.
Right.
Thank you very much.
That was the spokesperson for the African National Congress, Mrs. Zizi Kodwa. Let's continue with other stories now. The public protector, Thuli Madonsela, is now consulting her lawyers after President Jacob Zuma served a notice to interdict her from releasing the first phase of the state capture investigation. The notice came yesterday afternoon, now a day before the report was due to be released today. Now, on Monday, President Jacob Zuma said he wants to exercise his right by questioning the witnesses that Madonsela interviewed. He also wanted transcripts and evidence handed in. Madonsela responded saying that the evidence was handed over on October the 1st already. The investigation relates to accusations that the Gupta family had undue influence over President Jacob Zuma, on whom he appoints to the executive. This was upheld by, among others, the Deputy Finance Minister, Mcebisi Jonas, and former Member of Parliament, who also gave evidence to Madonsela. It is said to be heard on Tuesday next week. Now, remember that we'll keep you updated on the current court story in front of the court, or the current issue in front of the court, with Minister Des van Rooyen trying to curb the report being released today. Now, protests, chaos and violent clashes also gripped several universities around the country yesterday, but relative calm returned to others as the academic program continued. Let's now go to Griselda Lewis to find out what is the latest as the South African Union of Students will today embark on a march to the Chamber of Mines over what it refers to as the entity's failure to contribute meaningfully to the fees crisis in the country. Let's find out what's happening. Griselda, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Elvis.
Can you give us the latest on the South African Union of Students that is marching today to the Chamber of Mines?
Well, Elvis, I am struggling to hear you, but here at the Beyers Naudé Square in the Johannesburg CBD, there are a number of students that have already started gathering here under the South African Union of Students, who of course have organized this march to the Chamber of Mines. Essentially what this march is about is where students say they want to put pressure on big business to donate more to the realization of free education in South Africa. Well, the march hasn't gotten underway at this stage. We understand that it will be a bit delayed. But as they march here from Beyers Naudé Square to the Chamber of Mines, we also understand that there will be representatives there from the 4 big banks as well, where we know some of the demands of these students. To begin with, there's calling on what they call rich and big business to donate to ensure the realization of free education in South Africa. We know that some of the demands they'll also be putting to these 4 banks include the fact that the loans that have been acquired by these students who are in these tertiary institutions, they want the banks to scrap those loans that these students had to make in order to access higher education and training in South Africa. One of the major calls that they're also making is that you'd look at the various universities around the country where private security has also been hired at these institutions. They are calling for the redirection of the funds that are used to pay these private securities, and are saying those funds should actually be used to fund or to try and assist those who are struggling to access a free higher education in South Africa. One of the major issues also is historical debt. They will call on the Chamber of Mines to immediately release some funds to ensure that the historical debt by these students is also scrapped. So those are just some of the demands that we are expecting these students to put to the Chamber of Mines, and the representatives which will also gather at the Chamber of Mines from the 4 big banks in South Africa. That's expected to get underway, I guess, perhaps in the next a couple of hours at this point, as we're expecting many students to gather here at the Beyers Naudé Square. Not much of a police presence here, I must say, Elvis,
yes,
at the Beyers Naudé Square, but they're expected to march from this point right past the Albertina Sisulu Road, heading towards the Chamber of Mines, which is about 5 minutes away from here. So what they're expecting at this point is to be a very peaceful march, together with COSATU as well. We're expecting several unions that fall under the COSATU umbrella, including NAHAU, to also be here. And what we do know is that the national office bearers of COSATU will also come here and address these students.
Thank you, Griselda Lewis, right there in the CBD. Now, the big story of the day, judges sitting today on the matter of Minister Des van Rooyen, who wants to interdict the public protector on her report on state capture. Let's go there live.
The same report, and even the sections of the Act that are being invoked are the same. There's no doubt about that. So our position would be, if there is a preservation order, then there should be no stumbling block to the matter being heard jointly at whatever stage. That's correct.
Madam, I can report to your Lordship that the preservation order suggested by your Lordship is thought to be a prudent one, and the public protector accepts.
On behalf of the EFF, we would also accept the preservation order that your Lordship proposes.
My Lord, the interests of the DA are procedural. Depending on your Lordship's order in this regard, the DA just wishes to intervene in the matter as the complainant that gave rise to the report that we are speaking of, so there can be no doubt as to its locus standi. And it wishes to have its intervention recorded and requires copies of all papers and process filed in this matter to be served on its attorneys of record, if that is an issue which your Lordship would consider to include in any directives that you may order in due course.
My Lord, yes, I'm in full agreement with the preservation order. Yes, we are in agreement. We're not trying to stop it. We just wanted to have our rights protected. And I haven't been served with any of the current papers as well, so we could also be served with those papers so that we can answer and have the matter heard.
Appears to be
still have solutions to that?
Yes, my lord. Firstly, I have difficulty with the concept raised on behalf of the intervener that the public protector who stated that she will not release the report today should be ordered today to do so. That seems to be beyond the scope of this court's jurisdiction, and certainly in an intervention which still has to be argued and which has not yet been answered or replied to. So I think that request is completely premature and certainly cannot be made to this court. Secondly, as regards what has been referred to here as a preservation order, the object, as I understand it, is to bind some future, the future public protector when she's not here. And that seems to be unfair to her. She has a discretion which she must exercise lawfully and in terms of her mandate. But I have difficulty with an order which binds somebody who is not here. Yes.
That person comes to the floor and says, I'm prepared to concede to such an order. Why should your client object?
No, I'm raising that as far as we are concerned, the objection is related only to the implication, any implication there might be regarding our client. Our client has not been given the right to respond, a meaningful right to respond. He's been given 24 hours notice, and that certainly is insufficient.
That having said,
yes.
The idea is to let you have an application fully on
yes.
Next week.
Yes. No, I've already indicated a postponement till Tuesday is certainly acceptable to us. No problem with that, my lord. My problem is with this new idea which has been floated here without any papers to support it, without any response, any application or response.
I understand that, but I think you should just bear in mind I have to be practical as well. It's easy to put both time as any other. There are many parties involved, and to get this application is very, very good one. Procedurally wise, properly put into the court, I have to take into account certain information which may be important. I may say it is necessary, but it will satisfy, it appears, all the parties. So that the fact is often by the office of the party to say yes, you may make such a order without an application. Why should I now resort back to papers if there is an offer of that nature?
Lord, we have little doubt that if there is a signed report, which my learned friend said he didn't know about, but which now we see in the document is in fact in existence, if there is such a report, that it will be kept or preserved or maintained in the office of the public protector. There can be little doubt about that. And there would seem to be no problem with the fact that the report will continue to exist. My only point that I'm raising is that the discretion of any future office holder cannot be limited now by any order granted in this court when she's not present. No. I'm only raising that as a caution to any extensive order that may be sought or granted in this court. Thank you.
I think what should be best circumstances. If there is no formal objection, now, addressing you now because you are foreign speakers, so to speak, representing the applicants before me. If there is no in-principle, no objection in principle to allow the parties, other parties in court to join themselves to this application. I'm referring to counsel for the DA.
That is correct, Madam.
So that this application can become right between now and next week, Tuesday. Should I not allow the matter to stand down so that council can go and sit and prepare the draft order for this matter to be referred to the same court next week, Tuesday, 10 o'clock. We will hear the application. And then we can also agree amongst yourselves what time periods for what, for filing of affidavits should be given. Otherwise, if I have to sort out that, I think it will take a long time, and I still have other questions.
Indeed, my lord, that is the function of counsel. I just want to make one point clear. There's an intervention, an application to intervene. We received that, I think, this morning. Yes, I received it this morning. There is no, in our view, as it is formulated at the moment, no direct and substantial interest at all. It seems to us to be rather a publicity stunt on behalf of political parties. But that's not what this court is for. That direct and substantial interest has to be shown, and it's disputed at this stage on the papers which we have seen, and it's disputed, and any order will be subject to our right to object to any intervention. As your lordship pleases.
And agree on filing and the consent and the reply so that applications can then be part of the hearing this week.
Yes, I find to do that between now and Tuesday, when there are 3 interveners, I think, or 4 possibly, interveners, a tall order for. Yes.
We're busy writing something out which will run by the other parties and hopefully come back to your lordship with something which ought not to be contentious.
Thereafter, I will come back and hear the other applications. And the third council is ready already to present the draft to
Did you know that Vilakazi Street is the only street in the world to have housed 2 Nobel Prize winners? Vilakazi Street in Orlando West, Soweto, southwest of Johannesburg in the Republic of South Africa, has been home to Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Nelson Mandela's house was a modest family house from 1946 and still maintains those features. Archbishop Desmond Tutu still owns his house in Vilakazi Street since 1975 and often goes to stay there when visiting Johannesburg. Because of its popularity, the street has an influx of tourists. Restaurants with local cuisine have mushroomed around it, creating job opportunities for the locals and improving the lifestyle in the area. Orlando West High School in Vilakazi Street is known for its creative role during the famous 1976 uprising.
The HIV/AIDS epidemic has inspired an art exhibition to do away with the stigma attached to it.
It's hoped, therefore, that people who come to the exhibition will be challenged to think differently about AIDS.
South African celebrities on the ramp when vintage fashion and songbirds meet.
When you go out, you always want to look good. You know, you want to represent, and fashion plays a very big role.
You cannot ask a man to be both shepherd and butcher at the same time.
For your weekly dose of arts and entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
The Mandela Washington Fellowship is the flagship program of President Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative, created in 2014 to deepen the United States engagement with the youth of Africa. Now, the fellowship has achieved success well beyond expectations in the past 3 years and will once again engage up to 1,000 young leaders from all over the continent. There are only 2 weeks left to apply for the 2017 Mandela Washington Fellowship. Now, to tell us more about the fellowship program, we are now joined from our Durban studios by Public Affairs Officer of the U.S. Consulate in Durban, Mark Carr, and 2014 Mandela Washington Fellow Nozipho Zulu. A very good morning to the both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Renee.
Now, Mark, tell us more about this Mandela Fellowship.
Well, the Mandela Washington Fellowship, as you noted, is part of the Young African Leaders Initiative. And since President Barack Obama took office, he made it clear that he's looking to cultivate a new relationship between North and South, more of a partnership of equals. And realizing the importance of nurturing the next generation of young African leaders, he established the Young African Leaders Initiative, or YALI as we call it, which is really an umbrella program that has many opportunities for young people. Specifically, the Mandela Washington Fellowship is a 6-week program that takes young African leaders to top U.S. universities for 6 weeks of intensive coursework, focusing on developing leadership skills in one of 3 career tracks. And the 3 career tracks are public management, civic leadership, and business and entrepreneurship. And the type of people we're looking for are persons between the ages of 25 and 35 who have obviously excellent English skills, because you're going to be going to a U.S. university and studying coursework. But most importantly, people who already have demonstrated some leadership in their communities and in their chosen career, and who have found a way to tie that back into the overall development of their country.
Now, Nozipho, take us through some of your experiences as a Mandela Washington Fellowship member.
When I was selected for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I was placed at the business and entrepreneurship track. So I attended at the University of Texas in Austin for 6 weeks. That was where I learned valuable lessons on business and entrepreneurship, launching on how I would launch my business and how I would become a successful young African entrepreneur. The most amazing experience for me, though, was drawn from having shared the the coursework with a group of 24 young African leaders from different parts of Africa who were already running their enterprises and driving change and creating opportunities of employment in their communities, solving social problems through their enterprises. So that was very inspiring for me.
What would you say that you've gained from this program and from your experiences?
I've gained a lot. I've gained the experience. It was quite an eye-opening program that led me into doing a bit of introspection, and it gave me, I was so inspired by observing other young leaders who were already successful, running successful businesses. I was so inspired that when I returned to South Africa, I decided to launch my own enterprise, and I identified a group of individuals who were economically and socially disadvantaged. And when I launched my business, it's really to benefit those who are socially and economically disadvantaged. And also, it was amazing for me that, being a Mandela Washington Fellowship alumni, there's a lot of support provided for me. I had a mentor appointed on my behalf, and she was very helpful while I was launching my enterprise, while I was training the group of individuals who were in need of self-employment opportunities. And I also currently have a professional coach who is assisting me to launch and market my enterprise.
Now, Mark, if I can just come back to you. When fellows return to their own countries, do you continue working with them in assisting them with their community projects and working in the environment that they've studied in?
Yes, we always tell our fellows and all of our exchange program participants that once they've completed the exchange and returned to South Africa, it's not the end, it's just the beginning of their partnership with the United States. And we have a number of opportunities for grants and further training for these young people once they return to South Africa.
Now, Nozipho.
And
No, please, go ahead.
Just wanted to emphasize that the application is open until October 26th. And to apply online, you should go to the website, which is yali.state.gov. And you'll find full information about the program there. And we're speaking from KwaZulu-Natal, of course, the U.S. consulate here, but we're also recruiting for the program from our consulates in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria.
Well, it's wonderful opportunities that you are offering. Nozipho, if I can just get the last word from you. There's 2 weeks left for people to apply for this great fellowship. What would your advice be to those who are considering applying?
I would like to encourage them to really believe in themselves, because that's what I had to do. I just had to sit down and think about it, and I would encourage them to look at themselves as leaders and look at the work that they are currently doing, whether they are involved in business or in civic or in public management. They must just believe in themselves as leaders. Spend enough time drafting your responses for the application. Don't rush, and just reach out. There is help if you visit the website where you'll be filling in your application. So there will be advice and tips on how to fill in the application. But believe in yourself. See yourself as a leader, and you will make it.
Well, thank you very much to the both of you for joining us here on Newsroom today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it. That was Public Affairs Officer of the U.S. Consulate in Durban, Mark Carr, and 2014 Mandela Washington Fellow Nozipho Zulu. 2 weeks left to apply. Now, let's go back to the news of the day. Of course, you've heard there's been chaos at the universities. There's been many disruptions. Everybody is wanting to know what is happening with the Fees Must Fall movement. Now, of course, we'll get that story back to you shortly. Now, EFF leader Julius Malema has been summoned to appear in court. He faces 2 counts of contravening the Reuters Assemblies Act and the Trespass Act for calling on EFF members to occupy privately owned land.
The struggle for land reform and transfer of land is long overdue, It was here 2 years ago that Julius Malema made his controversial comment that has now landed him in hot water. The case of incitement was opened by AfriForum.
It sent a strong message out that people can't make remarks that he made, and that there will be action will be taken against people that incite crime.
The second charge relates to similar utterances, this time while the party was campaigning in Newcastle in KwaZulu-Natal.
These whites found us here, and none of them came with a bag full of land.
But the EFF leader remains unshaken.
It's our life. All types of threats and shenanigans and all types of summons we get. It's a continuous thing, and we're not crybabies. It's our life. We've chosen this life. And we'll fight these battles until victory is certain.
The EFF says Malema will present himself in court on the 7th and the 14th of November, but it has questioned the timing of the summons.
We suspect preliminarily that it's part of the response to the impending public protector report on state capture, because the CIC is part of those that have made a submission to the public protector about the incidents of state capture by the Gupta family, who have captured Jacob Zuma and the ANC for their own purposes.
The party is making a similar allegation with regards to Pravin Gordhan's summons, alleging the finance minister's submissions to the public protector on state capture have led to the fraud charges. On Tuesday, the NPA denied any political interference, a statement welcomed by the ANC. As Gordhan appears in court on the 2nd of November, the EFF will be marching in the Pretoria CBD. Among the issues, a call for President Jacob Zuma to resign and for free education.
Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The murder trial of Christopher Panayiotou continues in the Port Elizabeth High Court on Monday. The court has heard that the accused was indeed cheating on his late wife, who was brutally killed last year. A friend of Panayiotou's alleged mistress confirmed this in court yesterday.
Christopher Panayiotou's affair with Chanel Coates began while he was still engaged to Jade. The court heard that even on his wedding day, he had regrets about tying the knot with Jade because of his feelings to Chanel. Clarishka Kapp, the friend of Christopher Panayiotou's alleged mistress, revealed that he would buy Chanel expensive and lavish gifts. At times, he would invite her to even sleep over at his house. With these intimate cheating details, the state was trying to show how Christopher led a double life and how this could have been the motive for planning the murder of his wife. Meanwhile, another witness, pathologist Kevin Fourie, who did an autopsy on the murdered Jade, confirmed that she was shot in the head. She also had a bruise in the back of her neck, allegedly from being beaten by a gun. The autopsy report also showed that Jade was not sexually molested. The principal at Riebeek College, where Jade Panayiotou taught for 6 years, Marilyn Woods, also testified. She described the victim as a dedicated teacher who always smiled. Lerato Tipa, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan has met with leaders of the Eastern Cape Provincial Government and sought their input ahead of his highly anticipated mid-term budget next month. Gordhan also touched on the NPA's fraud charge levelled against him.
On the NPA question, that matter I've referred to my lawyers, so they will deal with that.
The Minister of Finance, responding to the NPA's latest announcement that the door is open for him to file for a review on the summons issued against him, casting aside any doubts about where his main focus is right now. The local currency took a big knock shortly after the NPA issued the summons. Gordhan warned about the relationship between economics and political events in that regard.
All of us carry a huge responsibility, whether we're in the public sector or the private sector, to ensure that we conduct ourselves in a way in which we try to maintain optimism in our economy and in our country. And that's what we are trying to do as the National Treasury.
His visit to the Eastern Cape is part of the mid-term budget preparations.
Yes, we are talking. We have concerns about infrastructure. We have concerns about some of the challenges we have. Of course, the budget process, until it has run its course, we cannot speak to the detail as yet.
Gordhan says provincial allocation figures will be revealed when he delivers his budget report. Unatipinwase, SABC News, Bisho.
We'll be back at the top of the hour with a full news bulletin. Your continental weather is up next with Phil.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, let's take a look at that continental weather. We start off with Southern Africa. Now, we are expecting rainfall for today, so great news for the area. We are expecting that rainfall to extend all the way from the eastern coastline up into parts of the northeastern regions of South Africa. Also expecting rainfall around Beira and the surrounding areas in, of course, the eastern coastline of Southern Africa. Now, we're expecting a bit of a dry one towards the west. It is going to be hot and it is going to be a little bit windy as well towards that western interior of South Africa. Wind speeds all the way up to about 45 kilometers per hour on its southeastern coastline today. Into tomorrow, slightly calmer, but what we are still seeing is a little bit of rainfall in the morning towards that eastern region of the country. Some rainfall also beginning to make its way towards that western interior of Southern Africa too. In terms of your temperatures though, for today, a nice warm one forecast for Cape Town. They're 24 degrees. Temperatures are 32 forecast for Pretoria, and we might just see some rainfall around Pietermaritzburg and the surrounding areas too. In terms of your rainfall for the western coastline there of Central Africa, well, we're seeing it extending all the way down in towards the Brazzaville area, in towards Luanda and other areas in the Congo. There, of course, they're expecting quite a lot of rainfall towards that western region for today as well as into tomorrow. Now, tomorrow's rainfall is going to continue largely the same, but we are seeing that concentrated just northeast of Congo-Brazzaville there, and so that's what you can expect there. It is going to be a warm day nevertheless, though. 32-degree highs forecast for Kinshasa, and Bangui is at 30 degrees. Temperatures all the way up to 37 in Juba, so a hot one there, and it's going to be rather humid just after that rainfall as well. We're not expecting too much rainfall, but just isolated showers for the area. Showers also forecast southeast of Khartoum for today. Other than that, though, it remains very dry all the way throughout the northeastern regions of Africa here. Not really any surprises there, but higher pressure systems do dominate. Luxor and Cairo expecting a warm day as well. So taking a look at that, we're at 43 and 34 respectively. Baghdad at 27 and sunny skies throughout all of these areas. We are going to see some cloud cover coming in towards Tripoli and Benghazi as well. So it is going to be a bit of a cloudy one there. We might just see a little bit of rainfall as well moving further west. And that's going to be around Rabat, Algiers, Tunis. This is the result of a stronger low pressure system which has passed through that northern hemisphere region and is affecting Europe in the surrounding areas as well. Rainfall for today and tomorrow expected around the Bamako area and towards Conakry as well. But you can't see too much rainfall as we look towards Lagos. It is beginning to dry up in that area slightly, and we're beginning to see the change of season weather patterns coming in. Northern Hemisphere winter, of course, expected to get a little bit cooler there. So as a result, Rabat's only at 21 and Algiers 24. And as we said, that low pressure system bringing in the rainfall to that area as well. This is where we leave your weather for now. But if you have any questions or queries, any feedback for us, weather at sabc.co.za is our email. Alternatively, give us a call and speak to us directly. 011 714 5077 is the number. That's where we leave it for now. Stay tuned.
Young girls crossing our borders often find themselves alone in the big city of Johannesburg.
I came here when my pregnancy was 6 months.
Like many other girls from Zimbabwe, Abigail found her way here to the Central Methodist Church.
My friend who was raped, who was forced to have sex at the church.
I insisted that this needed to be handled with the police.
I think we don't have rights. You do what you don't want to do, and you'll be forced.
Any refugee in a strange country is vulnerable to forms of abuse and manipulation.
I don't have any option. I can just continue to be with the guys so that I can take care of my baby.
When you enter Totot traditional restaurant in Addis Ababa, you are greeted by the smell of locally fried Ethiopian coffee beans. The furniture either has a traditional design or are carved with Ethiopian monuments. The items used for decoration in these traditional entertainment centers are got from different ethnic regions in Ethiopia, and that gives a customer a purely traditional Ethiopian feeling. For this establishment, creativity is key, as more than 10 similar places are competing for customers in the city.
This table in our restaurant, we use this thing for wedding, only for wedding ceremony. We do have like 6 chairs, so most of wedding ceremony celebrates here because this is based on Gurage culture.
For many, the highlight of the night is the traditional dances. The band that plays here is the restaurant's house band, likewise with the dancers.
Our cultural music is different. It is different rhythms. You can't find our music anywhere in the world. We have different types of tones from our unique instruments. I want to promote our traditional instruments globally even more. It is not promoted as much as we would want to promote it.
Often, the customers are turned into participants in the dance or drama on stage. Foreigners are easily attracted to these joints, but the majority revelers are Ethiopians themselves.
There is some ethnic group here in Ethiopia, some more. I think all of them know each other. They need exchange their culture.
The value of these places is intended to go beyond just entertainment. They are now being seen as living modern museums of Ethiopian culture. Coletta Wanjohi in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Hello and welcome to the final hour here on Newsroom Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome. My name is Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Renee Vest. Our focus today has been on Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who has made an impassioned plea for people to be allowed to die the way they choose, even if it means assisted death or euthanasia.
So the question of the day to be posed to you, So on the back of us here, there's a poll as well as a question: should assisted death be allowed in South Africa? So far, Renee, 52 are saying yes.
And 48% rather, saying no.
Oh, there you have it. These are some of these are the poll figures. You can also let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines.
Well, we've got a few comments.
Oh, do we have some comments?
Yes, people are tweeting in. They want to share their views. Now, Soraya says assisted death should not be allowed. Why be a coward to want to end your life?
Yeah, so says Soraya. Dennis says life and death are in God's hands, and playing God was and is Satan's ultimate sin. Don't follow suit.
And this tweet comes from Ntiana, who says, absolutely not. If the Arch read the Bible, he would know better.
Well, he's trying to tell the Arch what to read in the Bible, hey? Tiffany says, what do the insurance companies say about this? Aren't there implications for this hashtag assisted death? Well, that's a very interesting take, isn't it? Aha.
Khotso says, Thou shalt not kill. It means no one has a right to kill, even killing himself or herself. I say no.
Also says Koso, very strong views there that we have coming through. You can also let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. Wits University says a group of students allegedly attempted to start several fires at the Braamfontein campus last night.
Embassies in Thailand have advised tourists to respect the feelings of Thai people following the death of their king.
And the Office of the Public Protector says it's still not clear if Adhika Thuli Madonsela will release her preliminary report into state capture.
Now, Public Protector Thuli Madonsela has declined to say whether she will release preliminary findings into allegations of the so-called state capture by the Gupta family. Madonsela will be holding her last news conference today at 2 o'clock before stepping down after 7 years at the helm. And President Jacob Zuma and Cooperative Governance Minister Des van Rooyen have applied for a court interdict to prevent the release of the findings. Now, Van Rooyen's case has been heard in the High Court this morning, while President Zuma's application for an interdict will come before the same court on Tuesday. Now, the president says he doesn't want the report to be released before he has been afforded an opportunity to look at all the evidence and interview witnesses.
I confirm that the presidency has served the public protector with notice of intention to apply for an interdict and that the matter will be heard next week, Tuesday, at the Pretoria High Court. The public protector at the moment has not decided on what she is going to do next. She is still consulting her lawyers.
The day, the Economic Freedom Fighters and the United Democratic Movement have approached the North Gauteng High Court today to force the Public Protector to release her report on state capture. Our reporter Eldrin Sampier now joins us from Pretoria. Eldrin, now we saw the two sides presenting their arguments. What came out of that?
Well, I guess very important now, Elvis, is the breaking news that has come through that we heard during those proceedings is that the report on state capture will not be released today. The council representing the public protector indicated that as for due courtesy to the courts, considering that President Jacob Zuma has made the application to interdict Thuli Madonsela from releasing the report, they've decided not to release the report. So that's what we know at the moment. So at 2 o'clock later this afternoon, when Thuli Madonsela will be delivering her last few investigations, the reports that she has finalized, the state capture report will not be part of it. But what we do know as well from the representation given by the council is that the state capture report has been signed and it has been finalized. Now, the argument in court has been what happens to the report at the moment. The EFF has been arguing that the report should be released today. They say they don't trust that the incoming public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, will release the report. And this is because of an interview that she did with us where she said that state capture is not a priority. But the judge made a suggestion. What if the report is preserved up until Tuesday? So when the courts resume and when President Jacob Zuma's application is being heard and Des van Rooyen also joins that application from the president, that report will be preserved up until then. It seems as though all the councils are agreeing to that suggestion by the judge, as well as the Office of the Public Protector. But the EFF had a bit of concern, as I've indicated earlier on, saying that they don't know what will happen to that report. The judge then said that immediately when the order is set down and that report is not released in future, that would make it a criminal offence. So it will be up to the judge that will be sitting and listening to the case on Tuesday to consider whether the report, as being finalised by Thuli Madonsela, should be released. The representation that we heard from Des van Rooyen, his lawyer's counsel, indicating that he wasn't given enough time to respond to the preliminary report by Thuli Madonsela. He's saying that he was given about 24 hours, and he believes that according to the Public Protectors Act, that's not enough time to respond to some of the allegations that have been made. The counsel from the Public Protector indicated that as it stands, the report that has been finalised, there are no adverse findings or recommendations against Des van Rooyen, and this was indicated to him in a letter. Remember that in the interview that we did with Thuli Madonsela last week Friday, she also indicated that the team has decided to do the investigation in two parts. So there is the first phase of the state capture investigation, and then there is the second part of the state capture investigation. So the first part of the state capture investigation has been finalized, and we also had representation from President Jacob Zuma's lawyers who have indicated that they also agree to the recommendation or suggestion by the judge that the report be preserved until Tuesday. So now, as it stands, the court has adjourned. The different councils are sitting, and they're locking horns around what exactly the order should read out when the judge resumes.
Eldrin, thank you so much for that update. It's over to the courts on Tuesday. That's our reporter Eldrin Sampier on that story. Now, you can always engage with us on that number and, of course, the Twitter handle as well as the Facebook page to let us know what's on your mind in relation to the question that we posed to you today. A question that we posed, that's a poll there. Should assisted death be allowed here in this country? I'd like to get your thoughts. Let us know. Meanwhile, the ANC has bid farewell to the outgoing public protector advocate Thuli Madonsela, who steps down today after 7 years in office. Now, she will be replaced by Advocate Busisiwe Mqwebane. ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa says although he disagreed with some of Madonsela's way of doing things, she was an excellent public protector who helped to save the ANC from self-destruction and implosion.
There will be cases naturally because of people's location in society. For example, if you are a minister, if you are a president, such case where it involves the oath of office, maladministration, corruption, naturally. Not because they will be isolated. But I think the good thing about outgoing public protector is that she always acted within the law and the constitution and defended the act of her office. And I think the incoming will also fill the big shoes, that she must act without fear, without prejudice, without favor, but also she must defend the act, a public protector act, but also she must act within the law and the constitution. And it's very important, so that you must act like a court. You don't consider public statements which are made outside. You act on the basis, law courts, for example, they operate on the basis of a principle of all the adderam partem, that you listen both sides and objectively of the material evidence presented before you take a decision. And I think she will always be remembered, we'll always remember her for having stood her ground, even on such high-profile cases.
Yes.
I mean, we're not talking about Prasa, we're not talking about many other cases. She stood her ground, but using the law.
She's standing her ground up until her last day. She's supposed to leave the office today, but she's also supposed to release a report on state capture. It's in court today. Your thoughts on that, and why is there perhaps a push from the presidency to stop this report from coming out?
You will recall it's us, the ANC, who came up with a debate in the country about corporate state capture. It was early in January, after our Lekgotla, responding to a number of allegations that there were corporates, big corporates, were influencing whether it's adjudication of tenders or influencing some of our cadres who are in senior positions to favor them in terms of the working government. And then we also, having said that in January, we created an avenue because we couldn't respond to public statements that were made and allegations. We created an avenue where we could get evidence and act in that evidence. But unfortunately, not all our cadres, all those who implicated public officials, used that opportunity. Two reasons. Not because they did not trust the process. Firstly was that they wanted what is called protection. Two was the issue of confidentiality. And some of them suggested that perhaps we must use what is called law enforcement agencies and state agencies. That's why many of them, they would have gone to the public protector. And as the ANC, we're looking forward to that report because we're looking for evidence of that report, because any allegation of corporate state capture of a democratic government, of a democratic state, is a threat to the very nature and the character of a democratic state, but also to the character of our revolutionary movement. The ANC itself is a threat, that some of your cadres are captured. So we're looking for evidence, not something anecdotal. We hope that that report will point us to the African National Congress, but it's something that we've got to make sure that as the African National Congress we guard against. When people elect us, they actually bestow their confidence on us. Hence, we deploy our cadres in some positions. If now it is discovered through material evidence that our cadres have been captured by this and that wealthy family, then is an issue that the ANC can just close and dig its head in the sand.
Mr. Kotwa, you touched on the public protector looking at cases that nobody would even take or notice of, and there is a case today that you've mentioned. But now, one of the cases, or that is going to continue, is the state capture process, and the new protector is stepping in. Now, what is your message as the ANC to the new public protector coming in terms of these particular cases that's sitting on a desk and moving forward?
The same as we said when the outgoing public protector was appointed. Like I say, her critics was that, she's from obscurity, she's a Zumaleki at the time. Yes. She's the President Zumaleki, she will listen to Lutuli House. Now history is a judge. Yeah. And I think the incoming must not feel under pressure because there's a possibility that she may act irrational and unlawful to please certain section. I like the advice of the outgoing to the incoming, that always bring your team, act within the law and the act and the constitution. You won't make any mistake. And I think there will be a lot of pressure, given some of the political noise already, that she must take only high-profile cases. I like the example of the case I just mentioned from Mpumalanga. These are the kinds of people who don't get any attention because they don't have any high profile. These are the kind of cases sometimes I would like the incoming to focus, to make sure that she continues to restore the dignity of the Office of the Public Protector.
Now, turning to NPA matters. The Finance Minister has been summoned by the NPA. The ANC was very clear that the Minister is innocent until proven guilty. Has the ANC discussed this internally?
We said, given the seriousness of the allegations made against the minister, the ANC will be meeting urgently. We haven't had a formal meeting. As you are aware, we indicated early this week that a number of our leaders are not in the country. And perhaps there are issues that are now between the NPA and the minister as an accused person. The allegations are quite serious. And I think the ANC would have to meet urgently because some of those issues, among others, without stopping the process and interfere with the law, we'll have to discuss the impact. And the impact is what the ANC will regard as the management of that issue, because a finance minister will not be any Zizi Kodwa, whom if you arrest today, will not make a fluctuation in the rand and so on, an impact. But it's important to say, what then do we do as an ANC without interfering, firstly, or being inconsistent, firstly, with the resolution of the ANC in dealing with these matters that people are faced with serious allegation, but also with the law. Our appreciation is that the matter is before the courts now. We shouldn't continue to make public statements which also feeds into speculations about why and why not and what led to. Because our courts, again, will be able to sift facts from truth and truth from fact.
November the 2nd is a big day. That is when the minister will appear in court. And there has been calls by some people that there will be a march to support the minister. Will the African National Congress be joining that march?
You would be aware that Comrade Gordon enjoys the full support of the African National Congress because summons is not a conviction. He enjoys full support of the leadership of the African National Congress. That's why even the president made the statement that Comrade Gordon, the mere fact that he has been served with summons does not make him a convicted criminal. A number of us in the ANC, through different portfolios, would have said, look, we'll support the minister, we'll be with the minister when he appears in court, until the court makes otherwise. Because in terms of our jurisprudence, he's innocent until found otherwise by the court of law, not a public trial.
Now, there are perceptions that the minister's actions is of a person who feels that he's above the law. Is that the position of the African National Congress?
We've always made a point that we should not institutionalize individuals. Because at a point where individuals, they've got issues with the law, we always create a perception that the world has come to a collapse, or the institutions themselves exist because of those individuals. We've seen elsewhere the problem about institutionalizing individuals. We've always also said individuals themselves in those institutions must not elevate themselves and isolate themselves and making themselves targets of whatever issues. We don't think the minister thinks that is a victim, except that there could be issues that the minister feels has been unfairly treated, but we've got our courts. Our courts will prove and disprove some of the issues that have been ventilated in public.
Wits University says it is aware of a new voice note that is circulating in which students are being intimidated. The university says the threats are being investigated by security and police. Students have once again gone back on their word to attend special talks to end violent protests when they pulled out at last minute.
Equipped to act, but police did their best to keep tempers down. In the lecture rooms, academic activities continued. BSc Physics students Makwena Mpila and Malebo Sahange have different views on the current state of the VES protest.
I rely on a bursary, so it's like if I lose this year, then I'll have wasted a lot of a company's money, you know, and I don't know if I'm going to get it next year and what I'm going to do next year if I lose this year.
Unlike her classmate, 24-year-old Makwena Mpila is funded by NSFAS. Her background of being financially excluded is what drives her to support the ongoing protest.
Because last year I couldn't register because of the fees. I came back because the student fought for me, and I also want to fight for the future generations to come back.
University to shut down, to officially shut down. We want them to come with us to the national points of protest action that we are going to set up. We want them to be able to submit a class action against the government through the Constitutional Court.
I think we should all be grateful for peace. I think that the only way we're going to get out of this is through some sort of a negotiated settlement.
While the university is still trying to save the 2016 academic year, the question remains, when will the parties reach common ground? SABC News, Wits University in Johannesburg.
Now, protests, chaos and violent clashes also gripped several universities around the country yesterday, but relative calm returned to others as the academic program continued.
Anger boiling over at the Vaal University of Technology and discontent over, among other issues, the expulsion of 7 student leaders.
They paralyzed our SRC, Student Representative Council. As we speak, we are leaderless. This revolution is leaderless, that's why it resulted in this anarchy.
Students took their battle to the streets, venting their anger at police. While the university says it plans to continue with its academic program, and its last resort would be to shut down the university if the violence persists. But students are adamant that their protest action continues. More flames of fury at the UKZN Westville campus. This building set alight, and outside, more evidence of violence and clashes.
And as I got outside, private security started hitting me. I think they were assuming that I was a part of the protest.
But the sporadic attacks were not in isolation. Security personnel also under threat at the Tshwane University of Technology. Again running battles and claims that live ammunition was used.
There is an investigation underway, and it's not clear whether it was live ammunition. Once we have more information, we will make it available.
Police also had their hands full at the Northwest University's Mahikeng campus. Several students, including the SRC president, were arrested. Despite the drama, some graduations went ahead. And a Cape Town University of Technology student, Byron Dick, faces charges of attempted murder. He is accused of torching a security control room. 2 security guards were allegedly locked inside the burning building. Criselda Lewis, SABC News.
EFF leader Julius Malema has been summoned to appear in court. He faces 2 counts of contravening the Riotous Assemblies Act and the Trespass Act for calling on the EFF members to occupy privately owned land.
The struggle for land reform and transfer of land is long overdue.
It was 2 years ago that Julius Malema made his controversial comment that has now landed him in hot water. The case of incitement was opened by AfriForum.
It sent a strong message out that people can't make remarks that he made, and that there will be action will be taken against people that incite crime.
The second charge relates to similar utterances, this time while the party was campaigning in Newcastle in KwaZulu-Natal.
These whites found us here, and none of them came with a bag full of land.
But the EFF leader remains unshaken.
It's our life. All types of threats and shenanigans and all types of summons we get. It's a continuous thing, and we're not crybabies. It's our life. We've chosen this life. And we'll fight these battles until victory is certain.
The EFF says Malema will present himself in court on the 7th and the 14th of November, but it has questioned the timing of the summons.
We suspect preliminarily that it's part of the response to the impending public protector report on state capture, because the CIC is part of those that have made a submission to the public protector about the incidents of state capture by the Gupta family, who have captured Jacob Zuma and the ANC for their own purposes.
The party is making a similar allegation with regards to Pravin Gordhan's summons, alleging the finance minister's submissions to the public protector on state capture have led to the fraud charges. On Tuesday, the NPA denied any political interference, a statement welcomed by the ANC. As Gordhan appears in court on the 2nd of November, the EFF will be marching in the Pretoria CBD. Among the issues, a call for President Jacob Zuma to resign and for free education.
Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
We remain shut up until our demands are met.
We will continue to fight for free decolonized education.
Absolutely volatile at this stage. Police standing on the one end and the students standing on the other.
Can we get some help? Can we get some help? We want to know why they're shooting at us when we remained peaceful.
We didn't provoke anyone.
All of them have children and families who can't get into university because fees are expensive.
There is no reason to create our universities into police states. There's just no reason, and we cannot.
Economic indices released this week included the latest manufacturing and mining production figures. There were also interesting labour stats suggesting that perhaps the government wage bill was beginning to stabilise. But the big economic impact in this week, of course, came from the decision by the NPA to summon the Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan to appear in court on November the 2nd on fraud charges. Although this development was not completely unexpected, it nonetheless considerably rattled the markets. We saw a sharp fall in the rand, rising bond yields and several asset values take a knock, hence a negative reaction from the markets. Now, to discuss this and other factors relating to the economy, We are joined by economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governance, the SBG, in our weekly slot of the economy. Professor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
First and foremost, let's take a look at the latest manufacturing output figures. Any surprises there, you think?
No surprises, really. They are up by 1%. They're down by 1% over the previous month, but up 3% over the year. So once again, I think one's just looking at a weak picture, especially in the manufacturing sector, and we must expect that to sort of happen from month to month. And I think it's important just to emphasize that these high-frequency indices, we must be careful how we interpret them. Yeah. If they're monthly or weekly, it's important to get that noise to see if you can distill a signal out of it. But one must just be careful to get the total perspective. But as far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, that seems to be a fairly true reflection of where it is at the moment.
Interesting labour statistics, though. It's suggesting that government may be getting a handle on taming the public sector wage bill. Why do you think that is important for us, Professor?
Well, Elvis, you will know that one of the bugbears of our fiscal consolidation, which the ministers of finance have spoken about for some years, is the growing public sector wage bill. And when we look back, we see now that the public sector wage bill has risen by over 80% over the past decade. That's much higher than the rate of inflation. It's now constituting roughly 44% of the total budget. And when you think of the other things you could do with some of that money, I think it's quite important. And thirdly, surveys show that our public sector is among the highest paid in the emerging market club. So quite clearly, the fact that it looks as if these intentions to curb it and control it, which have now been reflected in the latest figures, that appear that the wage bill has been cut by about 28%. Now, I think we'll have to check that figure out. But at least it gives the Minister of Finance a little more room to maneuver in the mini-budget if he knows that that is coming under control, and he'll have resources to fund other things, like, for example, the fees must fall issue.
Now, talking about that, the big ticket issue, of course, and the big news this week was the finance minister, that is being summoned by the NPA. What are the implications of this development for South Africa's economy, Professor? And what's your broad take on the economic consequences of this particular summons?
Well, I think one must understand that the economic consequences are to some extent driven by some of the legal technical issues and indeed the political issues. I think one must accept that. But that said, I think the three issues are really what's happened in the financial markets and the rand, the issue of political uncertainty, and then, of course, what impact it might have on the perceptions of the credit rating agencies. But the important issue about the rand is it's taken a knock, but it's not as big as it was with the Nene affair last year.
Because it recovered fairly quickly.
Yes, and I think the issue is because it is undervalued anyway. But it keeps getting pulled down by these domestic factors, by these own goals, if I can put it that way. And so we've just got to understand that, unfortunately, although it ought to be strengthening, one of the challenges you might have is that it might stay weak. It might not be as weak as the doomsayers are expecting, but it may well remain weak, and that might become the new normal. That feeds into inflation. And I think that's really something that one should be concerned about. And I also want to make the point that when you add up the numbers, the impact on the economy, the loss of asset values and so forth that have occurred in the last few days, you ask yourself, for the sake of R1 million, a contract, how come we couldn't have handled it in a better way? I think, you know, there are some questions to be asked here about how this matter has been handled. Then there's the issue of uncertainty. Of course, it creates uncertainty, because although the Minister of Finance has said, I'm not resigning unless the President wishes me to go, the President has issued a statement saying that Mr. Gordon is innocent until found guilty, and he has confidence in him. But there's a feeling there's thin ice out there in terms of, you know, what might happen in the next few months. So I think that added to that, of course, one must say that it's clear that since the credit rating agencies are revisiting us now, reassessing us, they are trying to tick their boxes. I think this is raising the risk that they're going to ask much tougher questions now about where we go from here, given the sword of Damocles that's hanging over the National Treasury and over the Minister of Finance.
Where do we stand with them right now? That's the credit ratings agencies, because they are on our doorstep in a short while from now. And they will probably also look at this political uncertainty that you were referring to.
No, absolutely. I think one must just bear in mind, to keep perspective, that they won't all arrive at the same decision. There are three of them. There are three main ones that we know about. And they will all be making their assessments, and they are slightly different levels. But the overarching message that they gave us earlier in the year was that, look, you are on the brink of junk status, and unless we can tick certain boxes more favorably, we may have to do it, or at least one of us may have to do that. And the issue here is this raises borrowing costs for the country as a whole, not just for the government. And it sends out a bad message, and it could have a domino effect. So, yes, will we survive? Of course we'll survive if you think survival is good enough. That is why the Minister of Finance, together with Business and Labour, has spent so many months addressing them, talking to investors and saying, look, we are a going concern still. Give us some more time to get our house in order and to turn things around. That is why this latest development, there is the risk that all this good effort might be put into jeopardy if the credit rating agents say, well, we don't like what's happened in the past few days, and this has enhanced your political uncertainty, it has not reduced it. So it's quite clear that the markets will also have to learn to price in more political risk than they've done so far, because that's clearly a factor that is relevant, not just now, but I think over the next year or so, until we get certain important political events out of the way.
Now, in an article which you have written in a leading financial publication this week entitled, "Don't Put It All on Gordhan," you warn that South Africa must, in any case, not expect all the answers to come from the forthcoming medium-term budget statement, or the mini-budget, as some people call it. Why is that?
I think, Elvis, what's important here is that with all the drama around the politics of what's been happening and some of these economic consequences that we've discussed, we've put an enormous burden on the National Treasury anyway to say, well, if we just get the mini-budget right, alles sal regkom, as they say. There are other issues. We know what those other issues are. That the credit rating agencies will also be looking, apart from the budget and the state of our public finances and the fact that we have a weak growth rate, they'll also be looking at the financing of the state-owned enterprises. They'll be looking at certain structural reforms they've recommended, such as in the labour market, and a number of other issues. So it's not just a question of saying, well, if Mr. Gordhan is still there in 2 weeks' time and he delivers a very satisfactory mini-budget, that it'll all be okay. You cannot place that whole responsibility. It is a collective responsibility, in the first place, for the government as a whole, and not just for one minister, as important as that minister is, but also for business and labour to help turn the situation around. You cannot put all your eggs into the National Treasury basket in order to get the situation right.
Professor, a final thought.
Well, I would simply say this. I think what has come out in the last few days and what we know now is there is a trade-off between economic stability and political uncertainty. So if I had to offer you a hashtag, it's that political uncertainty must fall.
All right, there we go. Professor, thank you so much, as usual, for joining us. That was economist Professor Owen Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business, or the S and Governance, called the SBG in short, in our weekly slot of The Economy.
A presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed 3 al-Qaeda suspects.
Death toll in Yemen's 18-month-old civil war now stands at about 10,000.
People get killed or die and are actually buried before they're recorded
and we don't have a way of recording that, but we know the numbers are much higher.
Water restrictions are to be imposed on villages in and around the Nkomazi municipality.
Pumps can't pump the water because there's no water in a river, and if the water is coming back, then it's full of mud.
Those who can pray and those who can do any miracle to make sure that we've got enough rain, give it a try.
Welcome back. SuperSport United coach Stuart Baxter is not pressing any panic buttons yet following their slow start to the season, but he's aware of the need for a positive result that will help them build some momentum. They will target ABSA Premiership rookies Highlands Park on Sunday, hoping to pick the game up.
In the previous campaign, the Pretoria side had a strong finish, added with the Nedbank Cup title, but they have struggled to replicate that form in the new season. In 5 matches, Baxter and his Chargers have collected 6 points out of a total of 15. They will face a Highlands Park team that has not performed too well either. It's been a stop-start 2016-2017 campaign with FIFA international breaks. For SuperSport, it's been an opportunity to work on some of the aspects of their game. At the back, they look solid, having kept 3 clean sheets. Creating chances has been a strong point, but the conversion rate has been low.
We do need, for a lot of reasons, to score a little bit more regularly. One is for the total confidence of the team, because you always feel that you're on the front foot. If you feel you've got a chance of scoring, if you feel that you're not converting your chances, then it puts a little bit more pressure on the back four.
The team is hoping that the injured players recover quickly. 9 players are currently on their casualty list, including recently recruited Tifoma Shamaite and Keegan Ritchie. Lebantube, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now the PSL returns. Top 2, Kaizer Chiefs and Lamontville Golden Arrows are both at home, with Amakosi set to host Ajax Cape Town in Durban tomorrow evening, while Abafana Bestende will welcome Chippa United to KwaMashu during the day. Now the CAF Champions League final begins tomorrow with the first leg. The second leg takes place on Sunday, the 23rd of October 2016, in the Egyptian city of Alexandria. Now, at stakes for the winner is $1.5 million. That's the prize money for the winner and the ticket to represent Africa at the FIFA Club World Cup in December in Japan. Now, Mamelodi Sundowns host the Egyptian giant Zamalek in the first leg of the CAF Champions League final at Lucas Moripe Stadium tomorrow. Kickoff time is at 3 o'clock. Sundowns aim to emulate Orlando Pirates, who are the only South African side to win Africa's Premier League club competition, achieving the feat in 1995. Well, that's your sports news for now. Let's go over to Renee for some Laugh a Little.
Yes, Alvis, well, I hope we're going to have a good few laughs here. South Africa is home to a beautiful land, good food, rich in culture and language, and also, we're pretty funny. Well, at least we like to think so. We have some top comedians who are turning international spotlights on us, and Chris Mapane has held countless shows, hosted numerous events, and been nominated for grandstanding awards. This young creative has received standing ovations for his shows, including Blacks Only, a South African favorite. Now we are joined in studio by Chris
I don't know if you can
Mapane.
see. Oh, now I am. Yes.
There we go. Very warm welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Well,
I can't say no to TV.
Yes,
I'm from the Free State.
do like
Trust
the
me, TV is
spotlight.
very far. I grew up knowing that people who win competitions are people on TV. So I'm here for a competition. I'm going to enter something today. I'm going to scratch. You guys still have scratch card? You have something where you scratch?
Yeah. I don't know, do we?
I scratch airtime. Do you still scratch airtime when you buy airtime? So you have questions for me?
I do.
Yes, let's do those.
I want to know.
Can I sit on a table? How comfortable? How strong? How strong is the table? How strong is the table? I'm used to dancing on a table. Though. Did you ever do that?
I don't think I should admit anything.
Let me stop playing around. What question are you going to ask
Yeah,
me?
I want to know about your 10 years of experience.
Oh, yes. 10 years of experience. I'm very experienced.
We can tell.
Yes, I have a CV. I don't know what is a CV. Chris G.
Well, you're an experienced comedian.
Yes.
And we actually want to know about what keeps your content fresh after 10 years.
There's a lot happening, eh? Yeah, there's a lot happening. People are dying. Others don't want to pay. Can we have the same students to fight so that we can cancel the tickets that we owe? Like, you know, like your metro police. I don't know, what are they called? What is the term for tickets that you owe? It's about let's call out. Like, can you have the kids speed trap? Yeah, speed trap. Can we have the speed trap must fall?
A speed trap must fall.
Yes. You asked me a question. Actually, forgot the question. That's why I keep playing around.
I just wanted to know about
the experience.
How do you keep your content so fresh?
I love people. You see, I love you. I don't really know you. I don't love you like
love you.
Love you. Like, you know, like you. So I love people, and then because I love people, people love to laugh. They need to laugh because if you don't laugh, you have a rubber bullet. One of the two. It's either you choose jokes or rubber bullet. So we should either way. So because there's a lot that is happening, in black people need to laugh. That's actually the answer to your question.
Does that keep you going?
Yes.
Keep you in the industry?
Yes, because people need to be happy every day. But then let me stop playing around and give you at least I must give you one answer. Ne? How much time do you have? Is it like airtime? When you left with 2 minutes, does news have director? You have a director. Are you the director, Mchan? So when you left with 2 minutes, you must say 2 minutes remaining. so that I can answer something. Anyway, I'm a mentor. So for the past 8 years of performing, I've been mentoring comedians. So I spend most of my time going to like your open mics and stuff like that, have my own open mics. So personally for me, what keeps me going is seeing young comedians coming up every day, you know, because I believe that we won't have a future if we don't take care or open doors for young guys. So for me, that's what drives me. Mentoring, those are big words.
You also have something about ad break fillers. How's that going? And what is that actually?
This is what happens. You see, like people don't know now what happens when you go to the ad break, right? They have no idea that there's a guy who keeps going up and down here. However, when you have a live show, say any award event, the audience there needs to keep the energy going. So what I do is during the break, when people at home are going to drink water, the ones in the audience, they can't stand up because the ad break is 2 minutes. So we can't really allow you to go to the bathroom. So that time I keep you there. So I do jokes in that space. That's what I do.
Tell us about some of your upcoming shows.
It pays a lot.
Where can we see you?
Oh yes, people can see me on TV. This one, yes. People can see me on TV. I'm performing at Monte Casino. There's next weekend. Actually, from Wednesday to Saturday at Parker's. Parker's Monte Casino. And then I'm running weekly comedy shows at the Grandiose in which one? Where are we? And in Alexandra, every Thursday at the Grandiose. And then I'm going to be performing in my hometown. I'm taking my show there, and then I'm also running workshops. So I'm calling for all municipalities there to give me a shout if you want me to come conduct my workshops. Where are we? Yes. Can I have a director? Can I have this thing so that you can say camera 2? So yeah. So I'll be bringing comedy shows to small towns. You know, like Marapian. Do you know the place called Marapian?
No.
Yeah. Say raps.
I haven't been there.
I also haven't been there, but it exists. So I'll be going to the townships. However, because we are heading towards December, I'm also encouraging people to finish paying the society. You know how hard it is when we want to buy, we cannot buy because your money. Sure that all the money of the society every month is collected. We have books, and numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Tibo Church said it. Numbers don't lie. Wow. So we need people to pay.
Well,
my mom is a treasurer of a society. So it's a So is that a rap?
Well, unfortunately we have run out of time.
Yes, thank you. So we are done, right? Yeah, cool. So we'll talk later. Where's my phone? Bye. Thank you, mother.
Well, there you have
Sure.
it. It is a Friday here on Newsroom. That is Chris Mapane, our comedian for the day. And of course, he is going to be performing at Monte Casino very soon. But we do have a performance here today, ending off the show with Beffin. Well, we do have a performance. Befna, he is going to...
What happened back in the day when I was young and had no problem, man? All of my niggas is real, yo. You cannot f with the main ting, packing the AK at the bed, we just all goblin. Made a habit out of fucking popping bottles on my. And if I'm just talking about the day, me tell him I'm the my. That bitches never seem to make a bed, it just fucking would go my. Call me Pops on the Royce, only sound making noise. Couple bars on the way now, 16, I'm the boy. I know that could get shot, take 5 on the belly. And you can take it any way, new age Machiavelli. Telling I got paper. Go run quick, see what do we have here now? Do you wanna ride or die? La 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 la. Why I gotta act like I like all the wet motherfucking man? It doesn't take a fucking lot to notice I'm the motherfucking man. Only rapping, no, I'ma take it off the soul. And like I said before, I done made it to the door. I sound like I got a nigga right. You goddamn right. I ain't get short and you come I fuck the game up till bye-bye. Got bitches around like Wi-Fi, call it Wi-Fi for the sake of it. Mommy, she told me your type, Sam said you might type, you can make it quick. Exposing threats never seem to make a pick though. I'm the guy with the steez, hook, they cover the kicks though. Got the Ray-Bans and the life hoes, man, that's the life that I chose. Man, I got a wife and a side hoe. Off with that the same, man. Telling I'm the mega. Telling I got paper.